restaurants and implementing curfews. One of the more sinister sights, queues of customers lining up to panic buy weapons, fearing civil unrest and riots.
Forget toilet paper. In America today, they're lining up for firepower.
We're just concerned that people might be getting a little crazy.
Anthony Gordon among dozens waiting for hours outside this gun store in Los Angeles.
I've always been on the fence about owning a gun, but we had a family discussion about it and thought it was the right move at this time.
Preparing to protect themselves in the event of civil unrest. And while the president moved to reassure the public,
relax, we're doing great.
The nation's top infectious disease expert warned things are going to get a lot worse.
Americans should be prepared that they're going to have to hunker down significantly more.
State governors are listening, shutting down city life and livelihoods.
Bars, nightclubs, wineries, brew pubs, and the like be closed in the state of California.
Illinois, Ohio and Massachusetts have gone one step further, closing restaurants. New York City restaurants and bars only open for takeaway. The Big Apple, a shadow of its bustling self, is about to get even quieter.
As of tomorrow, our public schools will be closed.
And in New Orleans, police were brought in to clear the streets. Amid the panic, some are looking for an escape. At LA's legal cannabis stores, business is booming.
So they come in and like, I just want to buy a bunch of weed to smoke while I'm, trapped in the house.
Drugs and guns. The coronavirus outbreak tapping into people's deepest fears.
Scenes like these are usually sparked by mass shootings here in America when gun control is in the headlines. But in terms of a response to a public health crisis, this is unprecedented.
In the United States, Amelia Adams, 9 News.
I'd like to say good afternoon to all the brothers and sisters out here. Shalom. We gonna shoot a couple of video clips. Just a couple of video clips. Elder Maniel told us a long time ago they was gonna lock these cities down. They gonna lock them down. They gonna lock them down. Yep. Eventually they're going to lock them down. But you know what? I got a specific thing that I want to show you, brothers and sisters, because I don't think that many people still don't get it. When we're talking about this virus stuff, many people still don't get it. You don't get it, but you're going to get it one way or the other. And it's like I said, it is going to get worse. And the reason why it's going to get worse is because we ain't getting the message. So I want to pull up something right quick, because everybody's only, all this stuff that we seeing with this virus stuff is only the symptom. It's only the symptom. You see, pastors going to continue to preach their normal, everyday sermons. They won't feel the crunch until the government come in and tell them that they got to shut their church down. They'll feel the crunch then. The Hebrew Israelites, they're going to keep on doing their same old thing. Talking about some feast day, talking about some Passover, talking about who Esau is, or whether the Indians is Israel. All of that same old foolishness. They ain't getting the message neither. Nope. And they building mass graves over there in Iran. See, some of these places don't have the medical advances, and it is going to be a lot of people that's going to die. But I said to myself, we still ain't getting it. I'm going to show you what I'm talking about in a minute. We still ain't getting it. And I'm going to pull this up on the big screen. Yeah, so it's going to be something. We just showed, okay. We got another one we're going to show. Now that's taking place somewhere live, wherever it's at. It's live. That's happening right now. That's happening right now, live somewhere. I can't, with pinpoint accuracy, tell you exactly where it's at, but it is happening live right now. Now, I want to show you something, and this see, our brothers and sisters are already numb to a whole lot of things, and a lot of times we don't really want to face what's really at the root, because the civil unrest and the chaos, the people running in there fighting each other over some toilet paper and trying to empty out store shelf, all of those things, they're only symptoms of the problem. Now, you can't deal with the symptom unless you deal with the root. Okay, so that was a old video of a civil unrest. Our sister said it was in December of 2018, but right now they are in the same condition right now over there right now, and they also got uprisings in the prison systems over there because of the coronavirus and they containment. You understand what I'm saying? But you know what I'm saying? All of those things are only symptoms. You can't deal with the symptom until you deal with the root. So, if you got a cough and you got a shortness of breath and you got the coronavirus, those are the symptoms. You can't get rid of the symptoms until you deal with the root. So when we're looking at the thing as a whole, talking about dealing with the root of something, let me show you something. Let's go deal with the root today. We're going to deal with the root today. And dealing with the root is going to show you why the whole world is going in the condition that it's in. Let's deal with the root. Okay. Let's deal with the root. Let me pull this up on the TV so it can be big enough for everybody to see. Let's see how anybody want to deal with the root. Okay. Let's deal with the root. Hope everybody having a good day. Hope everybody having a good day out there. For those that's having a good day, those that's having a good day, I hope this don't make your day turn into not having a good day. But for somebody it is. Okay. Now, let's go over here to the TV. Let's deal with the root. Let's deal with the root. This is biblical. This is biblical, and this is judgment. And for those that going to hear the voice of the Most High, they're going to understand that. And then they're going to understand the scripture where it say, 1,000 shall fall by your left hand, 10,000 shall fall by your right hand, but ain't no harm going to come to you. And it's a reason why. So let's go deal with the root of a thing.
It was New Year's Eve 2019 when health officials in China admitted they had a problem.
The health authorities have activated their most serious response level after an outbreak of a new type of viral pneumonia
in central China.
A rapidly growing number of people were developing a dry cough and fever before getting pneumonia. And for some, it turned fatal. Doctors have named the disease COVID-19, or coronavirus disease 2019, indicating that a type of virus is causing the illness. When they tried to trace its origin, they found a likely source. This food market in Wuhan. Out of the first 41 patients...
Guess what? They found the likely source to be at a food market in Wuhan. A food market. Keep that in mind, brothers and sisters. A food market. But it really ain't food at all, because the only thing that can be classified as food is what the Most High told you that you could and could not eat. So as long as people continue to eat things that they call food, which really ain't food, these things gonna keep happening. So when you start talking about the grocery stores being empty and all of the toilet paper being gone and all the sanitizer being gone, let's not forget that all the chicken wings are gone, all the liver is gone, all the pork chops is gone, and all of the meat is gone. All of the so-called food, all of the meat, which really ain't meat, because you know what? God didn't call it meat. God called it flesh, and God called it flesh and blood. So it really ain't meat. But since people think that it's meat, they're going to go and buy all of that stuff. And at the end of the day, the situation is going to worsen, because this is where it's coming from. And if you really thought that you was going to be a partaker of killing the Most High's creation and eating them, and there was not going to be any consequences, you were sadly mistaken, because all viruses come from animals which the Most High created, and he did not create them for food consumption. So, let's see. Let's continue.
27 had been here. It wasn't conclusive evidence, but Chinese officials quickly shut down the market. They had seen this happen before at a place just like this.
Health officials are trying to get a grip on an alarming outbreak of SARS.
The virus originated in mainland China.
It spread across the country.
The disease had been festering for months in southern China.
In 2002, a coronavirus had emerged at a very similar market in southern China. It eventually reached 29 countries and killed nearly 800 people. Now, 18 years later, this coronavirus...
This particular virus reached 29 countries and killed all of them people. And you know what? Now can you start to understand why the whole world is up under judgment? Why the Bible say that Satan deceived the whole world? Because the whole world. So guess what? That put the Christian in the pile with everybody else. That put the Israelite in the pile with everybody else. That put the Islamic man in the pile with everybody else. And all of the religious constructs of this world are in the same pile of wickedness, blanketed by deception that come from Satan when he first deceived Adam and got him to go against the grain of what the Most High told him he could and couldn't eat. And the same way that Adam ate from the tree and his eyes was darkened, his seed, his children continue to eat from the same wicked root and have a darkened mindset. I don't care how much you say you love Jesus, how much you say you love the Most High, how much you say you love Yeshua HaMashiach. I don't care how much you say Allah Akbar. If you got a piece of dead animal hanging out of your mouth, you don't love them that much, because you still stuck in the same sin that caused the whole world to be tipped upside down. And if there's anybody out there that can come along and tell me that Adam didn't sin, his sin was not to be able to control his appetite, then I'll eat this hat that I'm wearing. But if you can understand that Adam and Eve's sin came from their inability to control their appetite, then you must understand that that same sin is wreaking havoc in the world right now as these viruses break forth. And if this virus don't cause the destruction of the millions of people, then guess what? The next one will, because all the grocery stores are empty and people are still about to repeat the same process. And they about to say, oh, we got to make sure we got food so we can sustain ourselves. Sustain yourselves for what? It's the food that's killing you. It's what you call food that's killing you, because it really ain't food. Let's continue.
Viruses in at least 71 countries and has already killed over 3,100 people. So what do these markets have to do with the coronavirus outbreak, and why is it happening in China? A lot of the viruses that make us sick actually originate in animals.
Hold it, wait a minute, what was that? Did y'all hear that? A lot of the viruses that make people sick, they actually have their origin in animals. You see? Dead things. Because in order for you to eat an animal, you must take the life that God gave the animal in order to eat him. But once you take his life, he is classified as a dead thing. And he who eats dead things is a consumer of death And since all of these viruses have their origin in the animals, which we were never supposed to eat, now you can understand why the whole world is engulfed in sin. It ain't no religious construct. Ain't no religious construct that's guilty of the same thing can be put on the outskirts of that. Oh, trust God. Oh, trust Jesus. Oh, Jesus paid the price for it all. Yeah, Jesus paid the price and he came and got murdered so that they could quit eating the animals. You see what I'm saying? Oh, but Jesus paid the price for it all. So those that say that they believe in Jesus, they make the Lord's death in vain because they don't understand what he came to die for. As with the Israelite. Let's go. Let's continue.
Some of the viruses that cause the flu come from birds and pigs. HIV/AIDS comes from chimpanzees.
But I want to go back and, like I had King Rashard read it again, I'm going to go back and play it again.
In 2002, a coronavirus had emerged at a very similar market in southern China. It eventually reached 29 countries and killed nearly 800 people. Now, 18 years later, this coronavirus is in at least 71 countries and has already killed over 3,100 people. So what do these markets have to do with the coronavirus outbreak, and why is it happening in China? A lot of the viruses that make us sick actually originate in animals. Some of the viruses that cause the flu come from birds and pigs. HIV/AIDS comes from chimpanzees. The deadly Ebola virus likely originates in bats. And in the case of the 2019 coronavirus, there's some evidence it went from a bat to a pangolin before infecting a human. While viruses are very good at jumping between species, it's rare for a deadly one to make this journey all the way to humans. That's because it would need all these hosts to encounter each other at some point. That's where the Wuhan market comes in. It's a wet market. A kind of place where live animals are slaughtered and sold for consumption.
It was not surprised at all, and I think
anybody that can tell me that the Most High is pleased with this has got to be the lost they ever loving mind.
that it was not surprised to many scientists.
Peter Lee is a professor and expert on China's animal trade.
The cages stacked about one over another. Animals at the bottom are often soaked with all kinds of liquid, animal excrement, pus, blood, or whatever the liquid they're receiving from the animals above.
That's exactly how a virus can jump from one animal to another. If that animal then comes in contact with or is consumed by a human, the virus could potentially infect them. And if the virus then spreads to other humans, it causes an outbreak. Wet markets are scattered all over the world, but the ones in China are particularly well known because they offer a wide variety of animals, including wildlife. This is a sample menu reportedly from the market in Wuhan. These animals are from all over the world, and each one has the potential to carry its own viruses to the market. The reason all these animals are in the same market is because of a decision China's government made decades ago. Back in the 1970s, China was falling apart. Famine had killed more than 36 million people, and the communist regime, which controlled all food production, was failing to feed its more than 900 million people. In 1978, on the verge of collapse, the regime gave up this control and allowed private farming. While large companies increasingly dominated the production of popular foods like pork and poultry, some smaller farmers turned to catching and raising wild animals as a way to sustain themselves.
At the very beginning, it was mostly peasant household backyard operation of turtles, for example. That's how wildlife farming started to get off the ground.
And since it started to feed and sustain people, the Chinese government backed it.
So it was imperative for the government to encourage people to make a living through whatever productive activities they can find themselves in. You can lift yourself out of poverty. No matter what you are doing, that's okay.
But then in 1988, the government made a decision that changed the shape of wildlife trade in China. They enacted the Wildlife Protection Law, which designated the animals as resources owned by the state and protected people engaged in the utilization
You see that?
of wildlife resource.
You see that? Article 3, wildlife resources shall be owned by the state. You know what? Can't nobody own something that God created.
That's one of the most devastating problems of the law, because if you designate the wildlife as a natural resource, that means it is something you can use for human benefit.
The law also encouraged the domestication and breeding of wildlife. And with that, an industry was born. Small local farms turned into industrial-sized operations. For example, this bear farm started with just 3 and eventually grew to more than 1,000 bears. Bigger populations meant greater chances that a sick animal could spread disease. Farmers were also raising a wide variety of animals, which meant more viruses on the farms. Nonetheless, these animals were funneled into the wet markets for profit. While this legal wildlife farming industry started booming, it simultaneously provided cover for an illegal wildlife industry. Endangered animals like tigers, rhinoceroses, and pangolins were trafficked into China. By the early 2000s, these markets were teeming with wild animals when the inevitable happened.
The latest on the deadly SARS virus, the worldwide death toll up again today.
China has reported more than 1,400 cases of infection nationwide.
It is what health officials have feared all along.
In 2003, the SARS outbreak was traced to a wet market here in southern China. Scientists found traces of the virus in farmed civet cats. Chinese officials quickly shut down the markets and banned wildlife farming. But just a few months after the outbreak, the Chinese government declared 54 species of wildlife animals, including civet cats, legal to farm again. By 2004, the wildlife farming industry was worth an estimated 100 billion yuan, and it exerted significant influence over the Chinese government.
Wildlife farming industry was tiny in China's gigantic GDP, but the industry has enormous lobbying capability.
It's because of this influence that the Chinese government has allowed these markets to grow over the years. In 2016, for example, the government sanctioned the farming of some endangered species like tigers and pangolins. By 2018, the wildlife industry had grown to 148 billion yuan and had developed clever marketing tactics to keep the markets around.
The industry has been promoting these wildlife animals as tonic products, as bodybuilding, as sex enhancing, and of course as disease fighting. None of the claims can hold water.
Yet these products became popular with an influential portion of China's population.
The majority of the people in China do not eat wildlife animals. Those people who consume these wildlife animals are the rich and the poor, a small minority.
It's this minority that the Chinese government chose to favor over the safety of the rest of its population.
These parochial commercial interests of small number wildlife eaters are hijacking China's national interest.
Soon after the coronavirus outbreak, the Chinese government shut down thousands of wet markets and temporarily banned wildlife trade again. Organizations around the world have been urging China to make the ban permanent. Chinese that encouraged wildlife farming decades ago. But unless these actions lead to a permanent ban on wildlife farming, outbreaks like this one are bound to happen again. For a bunch more information about China's wet markets,
so
and wildlife,
we start talking about dealing with the root of a thing. Let me tell you something. When you start talking about dealing with the root of something, hold on one second, because it might be. Yeah, that's cool. Yeah, you start talking about dealing with the root of something. So we see that all of these viruses are coming from what people classify as food. It really ain't food. You don't classify animal as food unless God told you that you can eat him as food. So when we start looking at the first book of the Bible, and God created the beasts and the fowls of the air and the fish of the sea, he blessed them all, and he told them to be fruitful and to multiply after their own kind. And then it says, and God made man, and he blessed man, and he told man to be fruitful and multiply and fill the earth and to replenish it and to take care of the animals and all of that. And then he said to the man, of fruit of all of these trees, which in any tree is a seed of the tree yielding fruit. This shall be meat for you. To the animals, he said, of the grass and the greenery and every herb of the earth shall be meat for you. Anybody that think God done changed his mind about what he said in the beginning have lost their ever-loving mind. And anything that you can glean in any part of the Bible that will make you think that somehow or another that eating of the Father's animals can be justified, you have lost your ever-loving mind. It is a form of deception. Have God said that you shall not eat from the tree, Eve? Well, God has said that we shouldn't eat from the tree, neither shall we touch it, for in the day we eat of it, we shall surely die. And the devil said, you shall not surely die. God, just know that your eyes will be open and you will become as gods yourself. Oh man, shoot, you know what? We can eat this pork. Paul said we can eat everything. What did God say? That's what you got to ask yourself the question. Paul said, eat whatever's put before you. What did God say? Our forefathers said we were to sacrifice animals. Well, before your forefathers ever came into existence, before you ever had a nation of Israel in existence, before God ever called Abraham out to be the progenitor of the Israelites, Abraham's daddy told him that only thing we need to do to go before God is to pray and then offer him a sheep and offer him a lamb, and then God will hear us and help us. Did God say that? God never said that. But we make every excuse in the world. We make every excuse in the world. And you know what? It is a form of insanity when you can see these viruses blowing in, and they are food-borne illnesses. And then to preserve yourself, you go and try to empty out a grocery store and buy up all the chicken wings and all the pork chops and all the meat that you can get. You go and instruct your congregation to go out there and preserve themselves and go make sure that they got enough flesh and blood in their freezer so that they can feed their family. But even while the meat, the flesh and blood was yet between their teeth, God slew them. You see, my thing is this. Sometimes the truth is hard to digest, especially when we've been raised in a way that was wrong. It's hard to digest, but it is what it is. You're hearing it, that almost every virus and every sickness that comes on the earth is a result of our failure to keep the diet. Every sin that is in the earth, whether it's the sin of addiction, whether it's the sin of fornication, whether it's the sin of adultery, whether it's the sin of murder, whether it's the sin of envy, jealousy, unforgiveness, bitterness, all of them are born of the sin that comes from the failure to control your appetite, your diet. You see, we'll go there. I know. I've been there. Been in church my whole life. Was a preacher in the pulpit. No problem to preach a sermon. You know what I'm saying? Trying to teach a young girl how not to be promiscuous. Prostitution is wrong. There's no problem talking about the drug addict or the alcoholic, the nightclub member. Never did think that as we would go downstairs in the basement to eat, never did even think that the one that was preaching the sermon was committing a sin against God that was far worse and was leading all of the Father's people into the same sin. You see, God's judgments are hitting the whole world. You know why? Because the whole world had become flesh and blood eaters. This ain't even got nothing to do with religion, because there was no religion when Adam and Eve fell into sin. There was just the sin. that they committed. And so the promise is that Adam's seed would come to a place of restoration because of Adam's sin. But we'll never come to a place of restoration as long as we still committing the same sin of our forefather, and somebody's coming along and saying, hey, you know what? Didn't Paul say that we can eat the meat as long as we say our grace? Hey, you know what? Paul represents the same thing that Satan was to Eve back then. Anybody who would get you to go against what the God said is a devil. Your forefathers, they represent Satan that was in the garden. Did not our forefathers sacrifice to God? And didn't Jesus go and eat flesh? Heck no, Jesus didn't eat no flesh. Jesus came to stop you from killing the fish that God put in the sea and told him to be fruitful and multiply. You see? Man, you know what? I feel like I done arrived at the pinnacle. I ain't never got to read another book again in my life, because all of my education have brought me back to this one simplistic spot that I have overlooked and overlooked and overlooked and overlooked. What good is it for you to quit smoking if you're still killing and being a partaker and eating things that sacrifice to idols? What good is it to not cheat on your wife? What good is it to you not be an adulterer? What good is it for you to not be in a bad situation if you're still committing the greatest sin that Adam committed? You tell me, what good is it? What good is it? I'd rather die with all of the other mediocre hang-ups that I have in my life and get this one sin that my father Adam sinned against the Father. If I can just undo this one, I can lay down and die comfortably with everything that came from it, because we understand what come from it. So, everybody want to deal with the symptom of the problem, but don't nobody want to deal with the root of the problem. And then, you know what? Guess what? You'll see it. You'll see it. Keep on living. Keep on living. Because see, God said, well, sugar diabetes wasn't good enough. Colon cancer wasn't good enough. You know, liver disease wasn't good enough. He said, well, none of those things good enough. Here I come. Yep, well, none of those things good enough. He said that wasn't good enough. Dialysis wasn't good enough. The blood clots wasn't good enough. The aneurysms, they wasn't good enough. He said, well, none of them things good enough. He said, but these plagues and these viruses, oh, they're going to be good enough. They just going to straight out kill you. So let me go do some work.